Hello and welcome to the, welcome.
Hello?
Hello, are you there? Hello and welcome to the Optimal Agency Podcast. My name is Patrick Cummings, joined as always by my friend John Gilson. Together with you, we're exploring the ideas of agency, diving deep to discover a set of guidelines on how each of us can best operate in the day-to-day to maximize our personal autonomy, professional freedom, and ultimately our positive impact on the world. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hello, and how are you, John?
I'm so happy, Patrick. It's a good day.
Great. Every week here on the show, we talk through a question sent to us by a listener. That's what we've got this time around. And be sure to tune in every other week and next week for a longer discussion on how we can own our lives by becoming optimal agents. Hey, would you like to get a question into a show? We would love to see it. Best way to do it, optimalagency.co/questions is the easiest and quickest way. That link is in the show notes. Let us know who you are, a little bit of context, and what is on your mind. You can also get a question into the queue by simply responding to any one of our weekly newsletters that we send out on Tuesday mornings. Optimalagency.co/newsletter is how you get on that list, and we invite you to do so. We have a question this week from Elliot. Here is a little bit of context to Elliot. He says, I'm 17 years into an Army career and I've got a 5-year-old. Here's his question. How have you seen people successfully manage the emotions of determining when a person is at their current time capacity? I struggle with balancing the knowledge that I could do one more thing to improve agency today. One more mile on the run, one less meal out, and money that could be saved. I try to keep the main thing, but I find myself fixating on the habits I could have done if I had only had more energy, motivation, if I stayed up later, if I got up earlier, etc. I reached the point where I just want to sit on the floor and zone out in free time after putting my son to bed. I find myself knowing I should be preparing healthy lunch options for tomorrow, or mobilizing or battling mental and physical fatigue, and it all leaves me frustrated at myself for the inaction.
Elliot. There's so thanks for being a member of the Army. Thanks for your service. Really appreciate that. I'm going to assume Elliot's about 35 years old, if 17 years into a career, and of course having a 5-year-old child. The question is, how do I do more than I'm already doing? I feel tapped out. And what I want to do here, Elliot, is talk about, first of all, what your habits are and what your habits should be. Right? So how do you, if you want to be better at anything, what do you need to do? In my mind, you need to make it a habit. The habits are the things that we do day after day after day. And I think habits cannot be a serious job. I don't think they can, because as soon as we make them a job, something we have to do, we make them not fun. And I think as soon as we make things not fun, they hurt to do instead of help to do. You know, now as adults, Pat, we talk about like, oh, I have to exercise.
Yep.
You know what you did when you were 5?
Yep. You played.
You went, recess!
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Like I love watching your kids. Like last time I was at the house with you and Michelle, Emmy and Miles, it was raining. It was pouring. And they just like ran out the door and started running around in the rain.
Yep.
Right. They were exercising, and nobody said, here's how you exercise, do your 5x5s and then do a warm up and 3 bear crawls in XYZ and run 1 more mile. Right. They said, you know, and you didn't even tell them to go outside. They just went because it was fun, you know? And so I bet they're in the habit of every day going outside and running around in the yard, and nobody's telling them to do it. And that's what I want for us as adults, is for the things we do habitually to be fun. Okay. So what are the things that Elliot's talking about? Running, right? Fewer meals out for hopefully better health, and fewer meals out for more wealth, and fixating on what you could have done if you had just done it, but you're feeling tapped out. Okay. So here's the thing. If it's important to you to run and to cook your own meals, okay, we got to do 3 things, 3 steps. Step 1, make a plan. Step 2, make it easy. Step 3, make it fun. And as adults, we have to make a plan where Emmy and Miles don't have to make a plan because we have responsibilities that we have to plan around. There are other things you have to do. So you need to have that you have to, that are serious jobs. And so we need to have a plan. Okay. Now, once I have a plan, that is in the habit loop, my cue. Okay. So a habit loop is cue, response, reward. Cue, how do I know it's time to do the thing? Okay, well, that's the plan, and it's twofold. When this prompt happens, I will do the thing. When I do the thing, here's what happens. Here's what I actually do. So what's the prompt for running for you, Elliot, outside of the chartreuse traffic band and the army t-shirt and the the Ranger panties? Like, what's the cue for you to get out there and run? Well, what if it was, I get home from base, I get home from my assignment, and I'm now with my 5-year-old, and we're going to go for a run, except we're going to do it like Emmy and like Emerson and Miles do it. We're going to make it fun. Okay. So could you run to the playground with your, and I don't know if it's a son or a daughter, but could you run to the playground together?
Yep.
It's a son. Yeah. So can you run to the playground with your son while he rides his bike, while you're teaching him to ride his bike? Right? Can you run to the playground, play, and then run back? Can you run backwards while he runs forwards? Is there a way to just make this a game? You're not going to feel bad because you will have made yourself fitter. It's not going to feel like it, but you're probably going to hit zone 2 heart rates anyway, doing this, which is absolutely beneficial, right? And you're going to spend time with your kid. And so you've got the plan, which is the cue, which is I get home and the response is my son and I are going to the playground. Well, when I'm going to the playground, it's an opportunity for me to run. When we get there, I'm not going to sit there on a bench while he plays. I'm going to play with him. Right? Or I'm going to let him socialize with other kids maybe while I sit at the bench because he rode his bike and he's getting much faster. And now I have to run really fast to get to the playground. Right? So the response is that. And then what's the reward? Right? The reward is you will no longer feel frustrated by inaction, but you'll also be closer to your son. That's the reward. The endorphins of the run are the reward. Or do you need to inject an external reward? Well, maybe when you guys get home, the reward is you get to make dinner together, right? Because you want to do that now too, don't you? Okay. So instead of saying, I have to make dinner, say, I get to make dinner, but how would you make dinner if you were 7 years old and they suddenly gave you access to the kitchen? What would you do? Right? What would you do if it was just fun? So what's the cue? We got home from recreating together, and the cue is we're going to cook. Okay. So what's the plan? Well, if you were really dialed, you'd know what you were going to cook, but most of us can do some level of staples. It's a starch, it's a protein, it's some vegetables. And how would I make it fun? Pat, how do you make things fun with little kids? You make it a game.
Yep.
Right? And we never give ourselves permission to make it a game, but you make it a game. Okay. Well, what are the things that signify parties, that signify fun? Music does it.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Treats do it.
Yep.
Dancing. All right. So I'm about to tell a 17-year-old career Army, either enlisted or officer, I don't know. But
just start dancing in the kitchen.
Here's what I want you to do. Go dance with your 5-year-old while you guys make dinner. Pop some popcorn first. Throw it at him. Let him throw it back at you. Right? Make this fun. Make it easy. So what does easy require? Well, easy might require, in the context of making dinner, that you've done some planning ahead of time, that you've done the shopping, that you know what you're going to make, that you're allowing him to help you make it literally, not watch. Okay, now put the rice in the pot. Right? Okay, now pour these 2 cups of water on top of it. Good, you're doing great. Okay, so we make it easy through planning. We make it fun. Okay, now I want you to recognize the negative cycle that you're in. And I think this is really, really important, Elliot. You don't cook. You don't prepare your meals. which means you eat out, which means you're inevitably taking in more sugar, salt, and fat than you think you are, which means that especially if you're eating late at night, but just eating poorly, period, you're mucking up your sleep. What you eat and when you eat it changes the quality of your sleep, right? Either eating too close to bedtime or eating bad, relatively processed food. So what happens to your sleep? You sleep less well. Well, what happens the next day? You have less energy. Less energy to what? Go run that extra mile, play with your son, right? Mm-hmm. Less energy to cook and prepare meals. And so you have less energy. So what do? You pick up the phone and you hit DoorDash, and here comes the pad thai or the Chinese or the pizza. And so what happens? You eat it and you sleep less well. And then you have less energy, and then you don't do the thing, and then you eat takeout, and then, right? So I need you to break that cycle. How do you break it? Start with the first virtuous action. The first virtuous action, cook, eat early. And, this is apropos of nothing, but if you can help it, don't eat your dinner an hour before you go to bed. Right? Mm-hmm. Try and eat it 4 to 5 hours before you go to bed. It is the blue plate special at my house every day, man. We have dinner at 5 p.m. That's when it goes down, because we've found that the earlier we eat, the better we sleep.
Yep.
Right. So cook, eat early. Now you want to mobilize. Let's talk about that. Okay, you can do it in the classic, mobility is a job, and I've got to do these 17 stretches in this order. After I do the myofascial release, then I'll do the stretch, then I'll do the thing, and I'll get through pages, 16 through 24 of the Supple Leopard. Make it easy, make it fun, make a plan. Okay, one of my favorite things to do is yin yoga. Now, Pat, we've referenced several times how 30-year-old me would beat 43-year-old me up. I like yin yoga, said John Gilson. Okay. So here's what I like about it. It is stretching. And essentially what you're doing is taking a pose like ones a lot of people know, a child's pose or a pigeon pose, and you're holding it for a very long period of time, 3 to 5 minutes. Well, what it allows you to do is really pinpoint the location of tension in your body and actively try and let it go. It's a relaxation style of stretching that isn't nearly as active as jamming a lacrosse ball in your psoas. And it's therefore very calming. So it works. It's made me more mobile than I've ever been in my life to do yin yoga. And the beautiful part is that it's all over YouTube. In other words, I don't need an instructor, a book. I don't need a plan. I just need to know which video I'm going to follow and how long that video is. So as long as you're on the floor zoning out, dude, do it in a pigeon stretch. Since you're down there, right? Yep. And so I love that. And, Annie and I have started to back up yin yoga with yoga nidra, which will literally put you to sleep. So what does that mean? Well, if I cook, I eat early, I put my son to bed, I want to zone out on the floor, but I'm willing to do it in a pigeon stretch. Well, you're going to sleep better, which means you're going to have more energy to cook and run and mobilize and go play at the playground tomorrow, which means you're going to sleep better. And so on and so on and so on. And all you need to do here is plan, make it easy, make it fun. It'd be really easy to look at your question and to take the way out of saying you're doing so much. You're serving your country. You're making money for your family. You're taking care of your son. You're doing enough. Don't do more. You have my permission. Except the things that eating out and not accruing your wealth and not sleeping are doing is actively damaging yourself. And I refuse to give anyone who ever listens to this podcast advice that says it's okay to harm yourself in service of the greater good. Screw that. Screw that. And so we need to find behavior patterns, and habits that allow us to do both. How do you be a member of the armed forces, be a great father to your son, and do what you need to do to take care of yourself? It's not about doing more than you're doing. It's about doing what you want to do smarter and more habitually. So, I hope that helps. And maybe we can take them through an example real quick with the preparation of lunches. How do we plan? How do we make it easy? How do we make it fun? Okay. So, there are 4 phases of preparing food. I shop, I cook, and if it's for later, I have to repackage and store, and I need some time. Okay, so how do I shop? How does John Gilson shop? I don't, Annie does. I outsourced it. Okay, but what does she do? We have an automated grocery delivery from Misfits Market. Literally comes via FedEx on Wednesday mornings. We get our food. It's less expensive than most of the grocery stores. It's organic, and it just isn't that pretty. In other words, we get the apples that they wouldn't put on display in Walmart. Basically, it doesn't get any easier than that. Like, the difficulty in my life around groceries is what to do with the cardboard box and how to get it to the recycling after the groceries come. Okay.
Yep.
So then cooking, like, again, make it easy, make it fun. If you learn to cook 5 or 6 or 7 staples, learn how to pan fry, learn how to roast, learn how to steam. Basically, you can make anything you care to. Okay. And it looks like a little bit of starch, a little bit of protein, and a lot of vegetable and fruit. That's what it should look like. Learn to make those dishes. And like I said, play your favorite music. It doesn't always have to be with your son. Put on your headphones and play whatever gets you off. I really like Slipknot and Avenged Sevenfold, and I'm not playing it for a 5-year-old, but I'll absolutely listen to it while I cook dinner because it gets me pumped up, man. Right? Sing along. Eat some popcorn, chop, season, cook, have a good time doing it. Okay. And can you make 2 or 3 recipes with the same rough ingredients? Sure you can. Okay. So then how do you package it for later for eating it? Get some bento boxes. You can literally buy these in bulk on Amazon or Target or Walmart or your favorite whatever. They're essentially multi-contain. You think about a kid's Lunchable, which don't ever feed your child, please, which, has the cheese and the crackers and the little spread and the little candy bar and whatnot in it, all in different sections. Buy some of those boxes, reusable, cleanable, and package it up. And then you just need to time and plan when you're going to do this. It's not every day. It shouldn't be every day. I'd recommend probably 2 times a week, maybe 3. And even enlisting your son in it, because you have an opportunity to teach him the principles of good nutrition, of planning for the future, of having fun while you do it and why you do it. Right. So anyway, I think that doing that maybe on Saturday afternoon and acquiring what you need to make it a party is a really good idea. And so we've come up with a plan. We make it easy by automating what we can. And then we make it fun by, listening to Slipknot. I guess now I have a really funny sense of fun, and having what we need to package it and do it. So, it's not a job. It's not a job. It's taking care of yourself. It's fundamental action, and you can get it into your day, Elliot, I believe.
One question I've got that I read into Elliot's question, which you spoke to a little bit when, towards the end, when you basically said, like, don't forgive yourself for the bad habits. I don't know if you use those words or if I'm putting them in your mouth, but what I read into his question was a lot of self-judgment, a lot of judgment over, I'm not accomplishing this. I should be doing this, but I'm not. Oh man, I suck for needing to sit down on the floor after my son gets to sleep. What do you do when that's the voice in your head? The self-judgment of, I'm not good enough, I'm not doing enough, I'm not saving enough, I'm not eating, I'm not making enough of my meals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, just as a trigger, like, what would you do? What would you recommend folks do if that is in fact the voice in their heads?
What a dick that voice is.
Agreed.
Seriously, leave me alone. Okay. One of the things I've learned to do, and it's really important, is to say what part of this is valid and what part of this is not.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm sitting there and saying, I'm a bad partner to Annie because I forgot to take out the trash on Tuesday morning.
Yep.
Okay. What part of that is true? I'm a bad partner probably isn't true. At least not in whole. It might be true in part, but it's not true in the whole, right? I try and have more redemptive qualities than not. What is true? I forgot to take out the trash on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. All right. Which of these am I going to fix? right? I can't fix I'm not a good partner. It's too lofty. It's too high. Our self-criticisms, I don't do enough for my health. What are you going to do about that? Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. I don't prepare my own meals. You can do something about that. But nobody's voice is sitting in their head going, you don't do this exactly actionable thing and you should do it.
Right.
The criticism is loud and indistinct.
Yep.
Right.
And non-specific often.
Non-specific. You're not smart enough. What are you going to do about that? You don't know anything about quadratic equations. Well, you can do something about that. Right. And so when that voice comes for me, and dude, that voice still comes for me. Of course it does.
Yep.
It's really what part of this is valid and what part of this is actionable. And can I ignore the rest of it? And can I find counterfactuals?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Elliot, you're not lazy. So if that's part of the voice in your head, it's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're not irresponsible. Also wrong. Right? You're not wealthy enough. You've got people that love you. You've got a platoon, a squad. You've got a battalion, right, of people that have your back. You're wealthy in different ways. Might it be true that you could save more money than you are saving while simultaneously taking care of yourself better by eating out less? Okay, we've gotten down to something actionable you can criticize and should criticize yourself for. And so, yeah, man, that's the way I think about it. But yeah, that voice is a dick. But sometimes that voice is right.
Right.
And we just need to know what that is.
It's listening to it enough to do what you just laid out, which is to examine the truth and the non-truth inside of the voice. And then to not focus, which is easy to do, focus on the non-truth, instead focus on the actual truth, and then do something about it.
I think it's almost a universal rule that your attention should only ever go to things that you could do something about.
Like it. Speaking of doing something, if you would like to get a question into our queue, optimalagency.co/questions is the best and fastest and easiest way to do so. The link is in the show notes, and we invite you to send along your questions across health, wealth, and time, and we will do our best to get them into a future episode. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. Thank you for your ratings, your reviews. Thank you for sharing the show. Thanks for sending us notes. John and I will be back next week for another episode of Optimal Agency.